These weeks of lockdown are making me think about my priorities. A chance to reset, to recalibrate. What do I value? What do I prize? What do I deem as worthy? It brought to mind a story that Jesus told in Matthew 13, a story of a merchant. The merchant's a little bit like an Alan Sugar kind of character. He's hugely successful in business, he's an entrepreneur, and he has the finest things in life. And yet one day he comes across an item that he has to have. And yet there's a cost, there's a price tag attached. He has to lose everything that he has strived for and accumulated to get this one item. And yet it's worth it to him. It's worth more than anyone or anything in the world. And so he loses it all to gain it. The simple truth is this, is that there is one king and one kingdom worth living for. The king is Jesus, and the kingdom is the kingdom of heaven. Jesus is worth more than anyone or anything in the world. And I'm being reminded during this season of lockdown that Jesus is worth more than my status, popularity, credibility. He's worth more than my likes that I get on social media. He's worth more than my bank balance. He's worth more than my dreams of success. He's worth more than my influence or the influence that I crave to have. He's worth more than my relationships, my lifestyle choices, my habits. Jesus is meant to have priority. I'd love to tell you about Susan. Susan is from Uganda, and when she was 13 years old, she heard about Jesus for the first time. An evangelist came to her school and took an assembly. At the end of that assembly, he invited the young people to respond. And so Susan put her hand up and she wanted to pray a prayer, and she simply and yet genuinely invited Jesus into her life. She got home and she told her dad what she'd done, and he was absolutely livid. He began to beat her. Then things got a lot worse. He took her to a room and he forced her to sit on a mat in that room, and he said, "Susan, you will not get off that mat until you renounce your faith in Jesus." With that, he shut the door and he locked it. For the next 3 months, Susan was locked, confined in that room. She only survived because her brave little brother poured drops of water under the door and put little bits of fried banana underneath as well. The weeks, the months passed, and neighbours began to ask her brother, "Where's Susan?" And in the end, he told them. They rang the authorities and the police came. And there they opened the door and they found Susan still sitting on that mat. She weighed less than 3 stone. Her hair had turned yellow due to lack of sunlight and nutrients. And her bones had contorted into the shape that she had been forced to sit in. They took her to a nearby hospital where she began her rehabilitation. And that's where she connected with the Open Doors team. And they asked her, they said, "Susan, why didn't you try to escape? Why didn't you get off that mat?" She looked them squarely in the eyes and she said these words, "My father told me that if I got off that mat, I'd be renouncing my faith in Jesus, and I could never do that. Jesus is the greatest gift I could ever have." I love that story. Susan bravely, defiantly choosing Jesus no matter what, deciding that Jesus was worth more than anything or anyone in the world, that he really was worthy of it all. I don't know about you, but this season is making me think through a lot of things. It's a time to reflect. And if you are a Christian and you're watching this, I'd love you to think about where does Jesus fit in your life? Is he at the centre of it? Is he the Lord of all? If you're watching this and you're not a Christian, maybe think about Susan's story and the fact that there are millions and millions of Christians around the world who follow Jesus with a raw, authentic faith. They are the real deal. And for them, they're willing to live and die for following Jesus. Susan was willing to be locked up in a room for 3 months and refused to get off a mat simply because she loved Jesus. He really is worthy. And I'd love you to think about that.